story. Let's hear his story.
That's why I heard it. All right, we've got a special guest in the building, and it's Mindset Monday.
Yes.
So, we were talking about getting your mindset right, getting your spirit right, starting the week right. And then on top of that, I saw this on the news, and I was blown away. Blown away.
Mm-hmm.
DJ Ron Nelson received a star for the Scarborough Walk of Fame.
Right?
And I was like, well deserved.
Yeah, talk about amazing for the culture and beyond well deserved.
Right?
Absolutely.
And we're talking about the man like he's not here. Welcome to the morning show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
DJ Ron Nelson in the building.
In the house.
In the house. So, for those that don't know you, legendary radio broadcaster. Now, I've never told you this. So, before I did radio, BMW promo brought
Chris.
me in. Yes, brought me in to your show, Reggae Mania. And I remember sitting there like, wow. And you had Lisa, one of the Lisas.
Yeah.
And she had I think she had her kids with her.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow. I would love to do this. Like, I was blown away.
So in some way, shape, or form, I touch your life, and you're here now. Amazing.
And you're here now,
I
so
never
congrats.
heard that story before, so that's awesome. Makes me feel great.
Thank you. Congrats to
Thank
you.
you very much. I really appreciate it. And can I say I'm overwhelmed, man? It's something that really unified the city when I looked at my Instagram and Facebook and the phone calls that came in. It was like the first time in a couple of decades where our community has been this united because, there's a lot of people that like to be cynical and throw hate or jokes and stuff like that. And this was a clean sweep, man. Everybody, I think, shared this award because, I'm very unselfish. So all the people who contributed to everything that I've done, I really want them to know that if it wasn't because of them, I wouldn't have received that award. So it's nice to give, and it's nice to get back some 40 years later.
Wow, 40 years, Ron Nelson?
I didn't realize it when people started telling me, but it's actually goes, let me see. I was rapping in 1982. I started the Fantastic Voyage in 1983. So it's pretty well, next year is what, the 50th birthday for hip hop? That officially, you know what I mean? It's been 40 years.
Wow.
So,
Amazing.
and I didn't see the time go by. I just realized it because people are telling me that now, but I'm like, whoa, 40 years? Yeah, so they're happy for me because I've been doing this for a long time. And when you say well-deserved, that's the common compliment that I get from people who even, don't really know me or don't like me or whatever. Like they went out of their way to say well-deserved. So thank you very much.
Some things that aren't debatable. You know what I mean?
Right.
And when we're talking about bricklayers and people that, set up the scene for, people
Thank
like
you.
us to continue with it is just, it's amazing. And you can't argue it. You can't.
Yes.
Well, I will say I met a woman at the award show. Wish I remembered her name now. No disrespect to her, but she came and sat down with me and my parents, and she kind of interviewed me on the spot over 3 minutes to summate why I was there getting my award because she'd never heard of me before. So in the end of it, she said, so I understand now. You created a paradigm shift for hip-hop in Canada.
Wow.
And I think that's a synopsis right there. Little did I know that the work that I had been doing with broadcasting and with bringing concerts here and recording studio stuff and just, being a person who likes to expose talent and
Right.
being very unselfish about it, that all added up to be something. But as I tell many people, when you're pioneering, you don't really know. It's only afterwards that you realize it because you're doing
There's
what
no
you
blueprint.
love. Exactly. You're just doing it and you're doing it because you're supposed to.
Well, let's just say this. When you said you don't know what you're doing, it's so true. I lived here. I was born and raised in Toronto, Flamo, big up.
Oh,
And then I moved
Flamo.
to Barbados. And when I came back, I remember listening to you, and I was locked. I was
Really?
locked in because out of, going through the station, you're there flicking around. There's no station that identified with myself that was the music I wanted to hear, was the voice I wanted to hear.
Yeah,
So
and I
thank
totally
you
get
for
that.
that.
And you're welcome.
That is so huge for someone who's moved back to Canada or moved to Canada to find that connection. And
Now-
Ron Nelson, you brought that connection for all of us here in the
That's
city.
awesome. See, that's what I mean. I'm overwhelmed when I hear stories like that, and I hear quite a few stories from a lot of people who were touched by. I mean, I worked at a community radio station, CKLN, which is no longer on the air,
Right.
and it showed you the power of community radio. Because now you can't go to a radio station and give them a cassette tape or a CD or whatever, and sit there over their shoulder while they play it, and then review it afterwards. And you know what I mean? It's the whole world has changed in terms of access for artists or anybody in DJs, etc., producers. So it was a special time, and
Okay.
I don't think we're going to go backwards. We're not going to see those times again. But like I said, I'm very proud to have played my part, even though I really didn't know it would add up to be something significant. But I'm very grateful because Canada, and especially Toronto, places like Scarborough, full of talent,
Right.
but there's not a lot of stages for that talent to be exposed, and it's still happening now. That's why I did what I did years and years ago, creating the Monster Jams and putting Canadian artists as openers for the big artists that I brought from America and having them battle. And that was all because I believed in the talent that was here, and I saw the struggle, I saw the frustration, I saw how hard it was to get inside, doors. And I try to open some of those doors by personally, just being dedicated to promoting hip hop and later dance hall in Toronto, and being proud to do it as a Canadian, and being proud to promote Canadian. I'm quite a patriot of this
Right.
country.
Right. And that's huge. That's huge. I remember having an interview with Karis Wani. He said back in the 90s, you didn't make it unless you came to Toronto. And that was
really? He said
he
that?
said that. But think of it. Think of the concert hall days. I mean,
Yeah.
you would know better than me, but I mean, even just moving here, I remember seeing these images and these artists and thinking, wow, like Dream Warriors, Mishi Me, Maestro,
Pick them all up.
And yeah.
Well, we're lucky. And so where were you when you were I guess, missing these things that Toronto was? I'm trying to make a point here. Like,
Right.
Toronto people are lucky because we're so close to America. And I was
That's
here.
what I
I was able
mean,
to bring
right.
shows from Buffalo's an hour and a half from here, right? So the people in the rest of Canada, I started hearing from them in my later years, and they were saying how they had nothing. Like it was a desert, the whole access to black music and to urban music and black culture and urban culture was difficult. They had half an hour of much music, I think, per week.
Right.
And that's all the black music people got if you didn't live in Toronto. Imagine that.
Right.
And now we're like the capital of this whole thing, and we've got the number one artists coming from Canada. I mean, all that, as people are telling me now, they're like, Ron, look, man, if you didn't do what you did, Drake could be a chef working at the CN Tower, like
Ron Nelson.
you never know.
Ron,
you might not be
you
here
are
doing
too-
what you're doing right now. You could be a street sweeper. Rich could be
Definitely.
working
That's
at a
good
hotel.
point.
Like,
That's a good point. I would
so-
have been a street sweeper. Ron Nelson, you are something else. You have not changed, and
I'm
I love
outspoken,
it.
I get in
love
trouble.
it. But you have a good point. If you did not do radio, I would not have worked at Flow at the time, Milestone Radio, and then I would not have worked for G 98.7 and now Flow 98.7.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, and the
100%.
Mishi Me's out there, who knows what they'd be doing, So
Yeah.
everyone who has been part of the whole culture over the last, again, I started 1983 on the radio, so if you
Wow.
go back to those days, man, and then you should know what I did, because maybe you were listening, or maybe you were one of those people that came down to CKLN and I hung out and found the first umbrella where you could say, look, there's other people like me who like the same kind of music, and guess what? We have things in common. We can talk now. We can communicate, and that was the beginning of what exists right now. So I'm not trying to take anything away from anyone. I'm not self-gloating. I'm just saying, from if you want to study the history
Right.
of Canadian hip-hop, then you have to recognize that the seed was planted for us in relatively early in the whole stage of hip-hop, which was around 1983, but Rapper's Delight came out in 1979, so there was a bit of stagnation, and except for people like Maestro, there was no one to identify with. Michi as well, she came actually before, but the commercial success of Canadian hip-hop that you're seeing now did not exist then. A lot of rappers who deserve glory didn't get it because, they got old waiting for it to happen. And I will say it one more time. Toronto, Canada, Scarborough, everyone here, we have enough talent, internationally acclaimed talent. We just need to promote it more and give this talent more stages so they can perform and get exposure.